And there we go. Good evening and welcome to the South County Fire Board of Commissioners regular board meeting for October 15, 2024. I'll go ahead and call us to order. Ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up is approval of the agenda. Commissioners, you have the draft agenda in front of you. I don't have any additions for or amendments to the agenda. Is there anything else for the agenda?
I move to
not,
approve it.
It's been moved by Commissioner Chan and second by Commissioner Teofilak to adopt the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. That moves us forward in the agenda then to item number 4, which is the consent agenda, which includes the payroll summary and authorization for August and September 2024 and claims vouchers totaling $1,733,635.46. Those are the two items on the consent agenda. I'll move adoption of the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'm second.
Seconded by Commissioner Chan. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. That moves us forward in the agenda to item number 5, which is approval of the meeting minutes. This evening, we have the meeting minutes for October 1, 2024 regular meeting, those meeting minutes. I will move the adoption of the October 1, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Wittes. It's been moved and seconded to adopt those meeting minutes, October 1, 2024. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I just want to
Commissioner Chan.
I just make a comments. I'm glad that Melissa had done a really good job keeping up all the minutes up to date. That's really great. Appreciate that.
Any other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. That moves us forward in the agenda to item number 6, which is our public hearings. And so we have 3. We'll take them in order. The 3 are the public hearing on the 2025 budget and 2025 general and EMS property tax levies. That's the first one. The second one is the public hearing on the 2025 benefit charge. And the third one is the public hearing on the commissioner redistricting proposal, which is Plan 2, Map 2. So we'll get started with the first public hearing, and that is a public hearing related to the 2025 budget and 2025 general and EMS property tax levies. I will go ahead and open the public hearing and ask if anyone wishes to provide testimony to the board on the 2025 budget and 2025 general and EMS property tax levies. We'll start here first in the room like we do for public comment. Is there anybody in the room that wishes to address the board with testimony on that public hearing for the budget? Not seeing any request in the room. Let me go online to Ms. Blankenship and see if there's anybody on our Zoom platform that wishes to address the board about the 2025 budget.
Yes, we have Mr. Bill Krepick.
Very good. We'll go ahead and put this over to, yes, Mr. Krepick, can you come on to the video?
I don't know whether I can come on the video or not. I don't see a video. I just have an audio icon.
I see. Okay. Well, can you please state your name for the record and then?
Yeah, sure. My name is Bill Krepick. I'm a 11-year Woodway resident. And I guess it's okay to start.
Yeah, go ahead.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I sent you guys a fairly long email, and it's obviously too long for a 3-minute presentation. So what I'd like to do is just to kind of highlight the points that I made in that. First of all, I am working with a fairly large group of longtime Edmonds residents who are all extremely concerned over the contract with Edmonds that has basically grown 216% in in the price over 15 years, and the Edmonds population has only grown 7% over the same period. The contract grew at an average annual rate of 14.5%, and inflation has only grown at an average annual rate of 4%, so quite a difference. There was a 650% increase in the contract cost between 2019 and 2023. And you folks have proposed a 2026 increase of 65% in the cost of a renewed contract. Whether that's renewed or whether it goes through the annexation process, you're talking about a $19 million contract. So basically, our group of longtime residents, we feel these cost increases are pretty outrageous, and we are committed to doing everything possible to defeat an annexation vote in 2025 if these kind of conditions remain. Your pricing policy to ensure all customers pay the same rate for fire and EMS services, we believe is misguided because tax levy rates have absolutely nothing to do with the actual cost of providing fire and EMS service. You're all aware that land valuations really have nothing to do with the cost of service. You don't have to put out any fire on a piece of dirt. We ask you to pursue change and innovation to reduce costs and improve response. And we ask you not to just rinse and repeat what you've done for the last 10 years, because we feel that Edmonds is on the short end of the stick. We feel that you're ignoring trends in best of breed fire services across the country. Many of us have done research in terms of those new sort of reimagined services, and a lot of them have very good cases of separating fire and separating EMS services, and that has reduced costs, and it's also provided better response. And we feel that you should be seriously considering those kinds of reinvented kind of procedures. We think there's absolutely no reason to spend $750,000 to cross-train firefighters to be EMS techs, because if you separate out the two functions, you don't have to do that. We believe that prior 2020 cost of services study that you reference really showed no focus on benchmarking various service response and costs of other comparable districts. We don't see any effort to track performance metrics or cost per capita or cost per service call, and we wonder why. The study, we believe, is misguided, and it focuses on cost of services measured, and it asks what is the cost rather than why are we spending so much and how can we improve the efficiency of the cost per 911 call and the cost per resident. So we're wondering, are you going to repeat the same superficial study for $200,000, or are you going to change and focus on something new and innovative? We believe the 2025 budget is pretty lopsided, with marginal revenue increases coupled with material cost increases. And we don't think that's a formula for long-term sustainability. We wonder why you're not trying harder to balance the 2025 budget. On the expense side, we see a 17% increase in the Office of Fire Chief, a 16% increase in human resources, a 14.4% increase in overall admin, and a 32% increase in community protection, and a 18.8% increase in public information officer. And all that nets to a $10.7 million deficit in general fund, and it results in an ending fund balance of $30.7 million, which is close to your minimum recommended capital reserve requirement of 90 days of operating expenses. So in summary, with all these red flags, we wonder who is really going to believe that you're in control of your business. And we ask you to sort of get focused on efficiency and innovation, and not to rely on just tax levy rates as your pricing mechanism. Because we believe that if you continue the trend you're on, that you're going to have pretty much a taxpayer revolt in any annexation vote. So we respectfully offer these comments and opinions, and we hope that you'll listen to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Krepik. Is there any other requests online, Ms. Blankenship, for comment or public testimony on the 2025 budget public hearing?
There is not.
I'll come back to the room and see if there's anybody else left in the room that wants to address the 2025 budget. If not seeing any other request for public comment on the 2025 public hearing, 2025 budget issue for public hearing, I will close the public hearing on the 2025 budget. We'll move forward in the agenda then to the 2025 benefit charge, the public hearing for the 2025 benefit charge. I will open the public hearing for the 2025 benefit charge and ask if there is any comment for the board, a testimony for the board from anyone in the room on the 2025 benefit charge. Any requests to address the board on the 2025 benefit charge? Not seeing any requests here in the room, let me go to Ms. Blankenship and ask online on our Zoom platform if there's anybody on the Zoom platform that wants to provide public comment regarding the 2025 benefit charge.
There is not.
Ms. Blankenship, thank you. I'll come back to the room, see if there's any last request in the room for the 2025 benefit charge. Public comment on the public hearing. Not seeing any requests for that, I will close the 2025 benefit charge public hearing. Thank you. We'll move forward then in the agenda to item 6C, which is the public hearing on commissioner redistricting. Map 2. I will go ahead and open the public hearing on the commissioner redistricting, and I'll start first in the room, see if there's any request for testimony to address the board regarding the commissioner redistricting proposal, Map 2. Any request in the room to address the board? Not seeing any request to address the board, I'll turn over to Ms. Blankenship and ask on our Zoom platform, is there any request to address the board regarding the public hearing on commissioner redistricting?
There is not.
Thank you, Ms. Blankenship. I'll come back to the room one last time. Any request in the room to address the board on the public hearing related to commissioner redistricting? Not seeing any requests to address the board, I will close the public hearing on commissioner redistricting. That closes our 3 public hearings on those issues in item number 6. Thank you, and moves us forward in the agenda to public comment. Is there any request for public comment? We'll start first in the room. Any request for public comment? Not seeing any request in the room for public comment, I'll turn to Ms. Blankenship and ask, is there any request for public comment on our Zoom platform?
There is not.
Thank you, Ms. Blankenship. I'll come back to the room. Any requests for public comment? Not seeing any requests for public comment in the room. Thank you. We will move forward in the agenda then to item number 8, which is the fire chief's report. Good evening, Chief Eastman.
Good evening, Chair Kenny, Commissioners, public, and liaisons. I'm going to be very brief. I do not have a chief's report tonight. I think there's a lot of conversation that happened throughout the meeting. And as you guys know, I've been out of town. So unless you have any questions for me or any other staff, that will be my chief's report for tonight.
Were there any questions for the chief on the brief chief's report? Not seeing any requests. Thank you, Chief Eastman. Okay. That moves us forward in the agenda to item number 9, which is the union report. And we may have Vice President Pickens here for the on the Zoom platform. Vice President Pickens, are you appearing tonight for the union report? If you are, you've got to come off mute.
All right, I've been able to successfully.
There we go. We can hear you now. No, you're muted again. Vice President Pickens, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. I
Okay, good.
apologize.
Go ahead.
President Moore was planning on speaking tonight. He's on duty and got a call, so I kind of hopped in last minute. And the last time I tried to unmute and undo my camera at the same time, I was unsuccessful. So I'm not gonna try that again. I'm just gonna speak
Sounds good.
without
Thank
my
you.
video on, if that's okay. We don't have anything
Yes.
to report. I will just say President Moore and myself were both at headquarters today and had some very good and collaborative discussions with our administrators regarding obviously some of the concerns that were raised at the previous meetings and you know, how we can come together and collaborate on some potential solutions. So I think you guys will hopefully hear some more about that this evening. And we thank you guys for giving us that platform to speak and raise our concerns. And we look forward to trudging forward together. So with that, I don't have anything else, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any. And I apologize for my technological difficulties here, as I wasn't planning on being on tonight. So I'm with you from my phone and not my computer as I would normally be.
That sounds good. Thank you, Vice President Pickens. Any questions for Vice President Pickens from the board members? No request for or no request for questions. Thank you, Vice President Pickens. Moving forward in the agenda, then we have unfinished business, item number 10, and we'll start with 2025 budget deliberations. That's Chief Eastman and Mr. Bothwell and others. Good evening.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. There are two items in your packet that are in support of your budget deliberations. The first one is follow-up to last week's meeting, and Chair Kenny had solicited feedback on the proposal. It's in the Chief's preliminary budget to use some of our bank capacity. And so there's several bullet points in your agenda materials that describe the impacts of doing that. And those are based on the conversations that we had back in September about that topic. The other thing that's in your packet is the complete budget package. So there are 7 resolutions in there. 5 of them are routine. And then the other 2 are there's a resolution to update our ambulance transport fees and a separate resolution to establish a revenue stabilization fund. And those are the ones that are unique to this year. And so there's draft resolutions for all 7 of the budget package resolutions in there. And those will be updated before we bring them back for action, but they're currently based on the Chief's preliminary budget. And that's what I have for you.
Questions or comments from the board members about 2025 budget? Questions, comments? No? Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. That moves us forward then in the agenda to benefit charge, item 10B, 2025 benefit charge with Mr. Bothwell.
So
Or was it going to be Chief Eastman?
I'll do that one for
Chief Eastman. All right,
CFO Bothwell. So I think we gave an update last week on the benefit charge and where the preliminary numbers were and the preliminary factors, what the benefit charge rate was set at based on the preliminary budget that we given you. And we wanted to put this back on the agenda just to make sure that if the board had any questions from our conversation last week, that we haven't gotten any questions to date, but if there's any questions that the board had or any additional information you would like as a result of the benefit charge and where we are with it, staff could do that.
Commissioner Chan.
Yeah. I'm looking at the commercial rate. It's kind of like column 1 on 32074, and then column 2 over 20,000, less than 20,000, and then how's that whole thing works in there? For the public, I think they like to know.
So we break down our commercial properties into 6 different categories.
Right.
And I'm not looking at it directly in front of me, but I think the first one is 5,000 or less square footage has one factor associated with it, 20,000 or less, 50,000, and then it goes up to greater than 200,000. And so we break down the commercial properties into those categories because obviously smaller properties or smaller square footage and what they're used for require less resources, and the larger you get, you know, and we actually have a fire in those type of structures requires a lot more, not just apparatus resources, but firefighter resources, depending on how much fire there is and how much of the building's involved.
So if a good example in column 6, you got more than 200,000. Can you tell me, like, one of the a lot of the compound in here, are they pretty much on the 6th column, on column 6?
We don't have many that are over 200,000 square feet. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head.
Right.
I would say that if you look at our commercial properties, most of them are 20,000 square feet or less. And then you have, you know, it gets much less as you get more square footage. Now, I think some of that's changing as we grow and depending on what occupancies are used for in that and how the county classifies them. But We don't have a lot that are over 200,000 square feet. We have some, but not thousands of them, so to speak.
I used to stay in one of the apartment, the one that you also stay. How many square foot you think that is? There's swimming pools and all that stuff. You don't know.
Well, remember, you're talking about commercial properties, not multifamily. So they're
Oh,
not the
commercial,
same.
I'm sorry.
So apartment complexes have their own category and are done differently than that, right? And so they take into account not just the square footage, but the number of units and then the common space. So
Yeah, actually,
we look at those differently with regards to the benefit charge.
okay, maybe you can translate to me. Yeah, I apologize. I got that mixed up in here. So like a Home Depot, would they be under 20,000 square foot?
They're either just, I think they're just a little bit larger than 20,000 square feet.
Okay, so translate to me, if they're at the 0.9100716%, right? So you multiply by that 20,000, is that the tax that they're paying?
No,
Because-
remember we use the fire flow formula. So you
Right.
take the square root of the square footage, times it by 18, and then you times it by the factor, and then the gallons per the fire flow,
Right,
and then you come up with a calculation. So it's not, you can't look at those factors as decimals because that's not actually how it works. It's just it's a multiplier that ensures that along with the fire flow formulary.
so for an educated resident, they compare our residential rate is 0.30224, right? And then on the column one is 0.32. Would they say they would, the commercial would be much higher than the residential?
Well, so when you say much higher, you got to remember, right? When we talk about how the benefit charge is proportioned, and if you go back to when we initially implemented the benefit charge, we were, I'll use the numbers, we were $1.28 per thousand on the fire levy, right? Because with the privilege of doing the benefit charge, we forfeit the third 50 cents of the fire levy,
Right.
which meant that our fire levy automatically went to $1.
Mhm.
So when you compare what the citizens were paying under the traditional model, which is everything under property tax, and then you look at what it looks like with the benefit charge, and we compared it to the 28 cents, right? Because when we did the analysis, we kept the benefit charge equal to
Right.
the 28 cents. So when you look at like our $7.9 million benefit charge, the way we've set this up and the way we proportion is that 63.8% of the 7.919 million of the benefit charge is attributed to residential properties.
Mhm.
So it's not, when you say commercial pay more, they have a larger burden of the percentage of the benefit charges attributed to those properties versus how we used to do traditional. So in the case that how the benefit charge for 2025 is set up, 17.5% of the burden of the benefit charge is attributed to those 6 classifications on the commercial properties and the multifamily properties. And then because back when we established the benefit charge, realizing that the mobile homes had the largest impact because under property taxes, mobile homes usually don't pay property tax based on the property because it's different and mobile home values are less. But our response to a mobile home is the same as a regular single family home. And so we set and this was board's discretion, is we set the mobile home percentage at 1.2% of the benefit charges attributed to mobile homes. So in the context of that, Commissioner Chan, the way we're doing it, yes, there's a larger burden on commercial multifamily with the benefit charge as a result of them having more resource needs and more personnel needs if they have a fire or an event like that in those type of structures versus your residential properties, your single family homes.
So I think, yeah, that's the whole reason I totally support it when you come up with this idea. So if we want to keep on we kind of tell taxpayers the equity, right? So your $2 million house, you don't really totally pay just by the value, but for the use of the thing. So I totally support that. And I think eventually you want to kind of slowly, whatever, because of restriction, you want to try to move the burden to more commercial and multi-unit. Is that correct?
I think there will be some conversations that staff has with the board for the future to utilize the benefit charge, as a tool to keep our revenue stream of what we need for revenue. Unlike traditionally when we were solely property tax,
Right.
we'd go do levy lid lifts and you get these big spikes, sawtooth, because of the way we're limited to the 1%.
Yes.
And so I think there's going to be a conversation from my seats as the fire chief. I think we need to have a little bit more burden on our resource assigned to the benefit charge. And I think, staff's looking forward to having that conversation with the board first quarter of next year is how we go. And part of the, one, because we truly think it's a, like you've said, it's a fair way to, resource the RFA. But I think for the long term, most agencies in the state that have a benefit charge, it's the benefit charge is, typically more than 11 or 12% of their resource needs. And I think we need to be more in line and use all our resource tools and make sure, one, we can resource the RFA as needed to make sure we can provide the level of service that the citizens expect from us to do. And at the same time, doing what's best for our citizens when it comes to, asking for revenue and the resources needed to provide that service.
So is that correct? Then when I talk to regular residents, I say, hey, this, first of all, is definitely more equity, but also stabilizations of the resources we have, right?
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think one of the from my position, one of the benefits is we can use the benefit charge because when we do property taxes, the math, all that's done. And what I see the benefit charge is we actually can have our revenue stream and we can make sure we're collecting the resources we need. Unlike what we used to do is we used to collect, right? And we used to get this big spike. And then because of the way the 747 and the 1% limitations were, and then drive that over time where we can actually set the benefit charge appropriately to make sure we're collecting the resources we need and not collecting more resources than we actually need to function for any given expense cycle.
Right, for those of us who lived through 2008 recession, we feel it. So, good, thank you. That's where I'm going to talk to our citizen or residents like that. Thank you.
Any other questions on benefit charge? If not, in your packet, along with the other sample or model resolutions for adoption at the third meeting of November, is the benefit charge resolution.
So Commissioner Kenny,
Yes.
before we move off the budget, I know you asked for staff to bring back after the locals report and
Yes.
Chief Maxwell's prepared, and we thought it was appropriate to do it in context with
the budget.
the budget conversation we're having. So if you're okay with that, I'd like to turn the mic over to Chief Maxwell.
Yeah.
He's got a brief presentation to kind of answer some of the questions and give you my administration's perspective on the conversation that Labor had with the board.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, board, liaison, staff. I'm going to share my screen here. All right. the staff, we prepared a presentation just to kind of discuss some of the concerns brought up. And kind of the three areas we looked at, for our deployment, the concerns were around deployment. And, there's three issues, we have to have a reliable funding, reliable response, and reliable people when they get there. Those are kind of the three component that if we break it down to its most fundamental elements. And so kind of sometimes it's been requested to kind of say, where we were, where we're at, and where we're headed. So where we're at or where we've been in the past is we've had changing call volumes, and we've worked a lot with our data specialists, and our call volumes have slowly been climbing. Interestingly enough, they're starting to level off a little bit currently, and I wasn't aware of that as well. The second part of this is the entire year, your administrative staff has been deeply analyzing the deployment, future, where we need to go, what would be the best strategies, and I'll get into that a little bit later in kind of the mandate set out by the chief. Some of the concerns brought in the last few weeks are an urgent need to raise our response capability in some areas, if you remember. And there's a lot of talk about UHU. And we talk about UHU. We've talked about it for 20, 25 years. It's usually a fundamental part of most analysis that when we have consultants come in. So I thought it was important before we get too far out is to maybe revisit what a UHU is. So here are a couple bullets. Traditionally a 30% UHU is this demarcation line of when we need to add more resources. Number two, it's a measure of reliability. It's the reliability of that unit in that area. So if they go above 30% in how busy they are, they're not reliable enough to protect that area. There's no UHU standard for non-emergency work because we know there's work done outside, outreach, eating, exercising, training, but there is no established benchmark to contrast the other side outside the 30. It's not, if you look at Fitch, they say it's specifically not to be used as a measurement of crew fatigue. And then finally, UHU is one variable, one metric when we're figuring out deployment needs. It can't be used in isolation. There are so many things we look at when we're determining. But UHU is so common. With our consultants, we talk about it a lot. And so I thought it was good to let's ground ourselves in what a UHU is or review it. Yes, sir.
Give me some examples of standard, no UHU is standard for non-emergency work.
Sorry.
Does that mean-
Okay. Yeah. So there are no UHU standards. So non-emergency work could include public outreach, exercising, eating, training. Those are things because the UHU is just measuring time on incident. Okay, thank you. The other thing that can be confusing is sometimes people see UHUs and they'll say, well, we're seeing something above the 30% threshold. Well, UHU is measured across a shift. So whether it's a 12 or a 24-hour shift. So if you look here, I know it's really small, but sometimes the UHU does go above 30%, but that's in a single hour. And so, you could go all year and at noon, you have your one call at noon, you'd have 100% UHU if you only went hour by hour. So UHU is across the entire shift by definition. And it's different on whether, and historically it's been the 24-hour shift, right? So if you do a 12-hour shift, your UHU is going to be significantly higher and arguably the 30% threshold no longer applies.
Yes, Commissioner Fernhoff.
Chief, does that profile there also drive your desire to place peak activity units?
Yeah, it can. It's definitely showed us, our daytime work is busier.
Thank you.
And so then, now we're getting to, here's the actual statistics on, there you go, on the UHUs. So as I said, you know, obviously a 12-hour UHU is twice as compressed as a 24-hour UHU unit. If you look at those, we do have 3 of our units that are over 30%, but that's to be expected because there are peak units. They're peak units because we want them to be busy. We want them, and they're operating during our busiest daytime hours. If you look to the right part of the screen, these are 821 is the one we hear most often as being of concern. And if you look at all of our units there, everything is below in our 24-hour period, everything is below the 30% threshold. So we don't have any of our 24-hour units over that 30% threshold. We are looking to the future, and this is a quick snapshot. This is just rather a glimpse of what we want to talk to the board about in Q1 of next year. If you look at the left, you see our current staffing and units. We have 6 cross-staffed units, so they're jumping between the engine and medic, 9 dedicated engines or ladders, 4 medic units, and 3 BLS transport units. The chief has told us, has given us a few things, and we need to look out the future. One, what's a 5 to 10-year plan, and how can it be phased in, and how can it be scaled to meet future needs? 2, he wants high reliability across all first due areas, which means likely dedicating units would be the solution there. And he wants to increase our transport reliability and capability. And so then if you go back up and look at 2026 proposed deployment, you will see that we have everything is dedicated, and with that new deployment, which might be phased in depending on how fast we can go, it will add 3 more transport units that can transport ALS and BLS, increasing that transport capability that has been brought up of concern. Although noting we haven't crossed the 30% threshold as of yet, where we're hoping to is once we're meeting that 30% threshold, we will be redeploying with this new method to meet that need at the appropriate time. However, we are, we want to be cognizant that a concern has been brought to us, and what can we do? What can we do in 2025 to help and to hear the concerns of our people in the street? So we actually had some really productive talks with some labor leadership today. 821 seems to be the one that's brought forward most often as a concern. And we're looking at what would be some ways if we have any daily staffing that we can increase one of the units. We're kind of looking at Station 23. It has a lower UHU, and how could we use that unit that may be underutilized, or put it in a position closer to 21 where it draws off some of those calls. And you can kind of see that on the map. Some interesting statistics. 823, it actually only goes, when I said UHU is just one metric, this would be another metric. 823 Adam only goes to their calls, 70% of their calls are actually in their first due area. So that tells us maybe there's a better place we could put that. And if we look, 823 Adam goes to Station 10 39% of its time. So maybe that would be a better place for 823 to be, because now it's going to be responding more calls in its first due area. The added benefit is it's closer to 21. So it might relieve some of those 821 calls. So that would be a mitigating measure we could do by simply moving a unit. Now, there's always a lot of variables in it. This won't be the first time that we've moved a unit and it didn't do what we expected it to do. We've learned enough through deployment moves that what seems obvious, when you implement it in reality, a lot more reality comes up. And then the other thing we were looking at is if we could take and I guess lower the thresholds, which would trigger another neighboring unit to respond to maybe pick up some of those transports. But all that said, we are still below the 30% UHU threshold if we're going to use that as an indicator. So statistically, we are within our measurements. Everything is okay statistically, but in the interest of collaboration, maybe we could do some of these and see if it eases a load somewhere. And that's our presentation for tonight, and I welcome any questions.
Questions or comments from the board members? Commissioner Fernhoff, then Commissioner Chan.
Thank you, Chief, and I really appreciate the where we've been, or excuse me, yeah, where we've been, where we are, and where we're going format. I really do appreciate that because it gives me some context on how to balance the conversation. You talk about maybe moving 23 to 10. Is that just a move up scenario, not taking the role of a peak activity unit, something that differentiates between those 2 points?
Great question. Thank you. We would have moved 23 earlier. And so taking that peak unit and moving it to 20 or 10. So it'd be the peak at 10 for now. But also if there's some overnight staffing, extra staffing, maybe we could push that into a 24-hour unit as staffing allows. And we're going to work on running all those metrics. But for now, it'd be simply moving the peak over. One of the challenges why we haven't done it is because we need a Niederman or exhaust system. And logistics chief Curtis has been working on getting that so we have to move it or we have, other issues.
In the past, wall times also have affected turnaround for unit availability. How are we sitting these days, since we've now kind of cleared the COVID, whatever the flavor of respiratory disease of the month was? I know we're going back into cold and flu season, so, will that have a bearing on some of the strategy?
Well, I'll say so far so good. That's be the safest response I could give you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chan.
I'm really happy you talk about this. I mean, even after 20 years, I still have the questions on that. Since I'm representing the regular residents, right, that like me, it's very difficult to me to explain to them. I'm just do a quick calculation. Most of our residents have 8-hour job, right? They got 15 minutes for coffee break in the morning, and 1 hour if the employee really generous, 1 hour lunch, and then another 15 minutes for coffee break, around 3 o'clock. So multiply that, you put basically, if 8 hours, 3,840 minutes, and 90 minutes take away, 3,750. So they did work 97%. So how can I explain to someone, we go over 30% is already, too much already. Of course, also because there's 24 hours, of course, that nighttime is going to be, majority of the rest. So how can I explain to my taxpayer? Now, before I answer that, I know I always explain to them, unfortunately, we cannot schedule when the emergency will comes up, right? One day it could be all 20, one day could be 2 or 3. So even given that, how do we able to explain to our taxpayer?
Yeah, and that's a measure. What?
Litigation, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a measure of I guess employee workload, where unit hour usability is a measurement of reliability. And so once a unit is on an incident more than 30% of the time, we don't think it's reliable enough for that next emergency response. So that's what that metric is intended to be used for. But sometimes it moves into what the people are doing, but it's a metric for reliability.
And I'll add, you have one of the strategies about uncross staffing is, and this goes back to when we first started doing this, back when I first got here at District 11, when we had a station that had a unit reliability of less than 80%, we would start talking about what do we need to do with that. And now remember, that was when we had one resource out of that station, right? And so you have first do unit reliability, And then what we're talking about with the transport units is what is an appropriate workload or reliability for the units that actually transport, that are designed to transport. And those numbers, the reliability can be different based on first due resource. I'll define that in this case as an engine or a ladder, because they're the ones that are available far more frequently than my transport units, who are, they have not only a response component to it, but they also get to take people to the hospital. You have wall time, you have all sorts of other variables that go into that. And so it's a combination of multiple things. As Sean said, you can't just look at one piece, right? If somebody goes 30% UHU, that's horrible. When it's a resource that's designed to transport patients to the hospital, but my engine reliability or my first reliability is better than 80%, we're actually in a really good place organizationally. Now, it gets more complex when you talk about fires and effective fire force. And if I have we cross staff our firefighter paramedics and our firefighter EMTs, so those that are on a transport unit, when we do have those fire events, I have firefighters that can come in and they're not all on fire engines, right? And they support the weight of response. That comes into effect too. If I relying on these 2-person dedicated transport units as part of my fire response, I have to have them available in a readiness state to do that work also. And so like Chief Maxwell was saying, you can't just look at one piece in and of itself. It's multifaceted. And so Commissioner Chan, how I would answer the question is, it's UHU is one piece of what we look at, and there's a whole lot of other pieces we look at the same time. And so, and what we want to do is make sure we have appropriate resources for initial response and a high enough unit reliability that you're getting the first or second due resource, so you're not waiting longer than we think you should. The other piece is we need to have enough resources to do our transport work. And then an aggregate, I need to have enough resources to respond to those super high risk fire events too. And that's the balance. And the question is, we need to make sure we take an acceptable amount of risk. We have to take into account the cost and balance all those pieces, which I'm happy to say, Chief Isotelo, Chief Maxwell, Chief Anderson, Finance, HR, the directors, Christy from Communications, they're looking at this in a very holistic picture, not one piece, because there's a lot of moving pieces with it. So it's not an easy, if you're just looking at UHU, it's a very hard question to answer, because you have all these caveats to go with it, which is why historically, when we talk UHU, it's one of the last things we bring forward to you, because all of these other things add context to that number, and kind of solidify the picture. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that really helped. Then you have something to say.
Yeah, I just want to add that in 30 years, I can give you 2 examples that are important at night with our fire units. One is in about 2009 or 8, we lost the Bell Street condos that were almost completed with the construction. I was on ladder 20 at the time. We were the first in to Bell Street as probably I think we were the 3rd due. Both aid 17, the closest station 1 block from the fire, was out transporting, and aid 16 was transporting as well. And at that time, medic 17 was transporting. We were the only fire unit technically in the city, when we used to be a city fire department, that made it in there. All the units were cross staffed, so that was very unreliable. That was back in 2009. And then all the fatality fires I've been on in my career that I can think of all happened at night, making our highest risk for rescue happening at night, which you want to be reliable, you want to be staffed for. Those are the metrics that are hard to measure.
Right. Okay, that's how I explain to people. I don't, you probably heard my story many times. Some city contract, they just want to pay for when we make the call and not the readiness of it. I just say the opposite. We are the readiness of it, right? So now, but also, so for the readiness of now, then a lot of people, the second question is that, well, while you're getting ready, can you do something, right? I know the Beacon Commission matter, when they started, they mow their lawn while they're waiting and do all kinds of stuff. Even our recent conversations with the other city, they keep on saying, well, you have some, can we do some come to the station when they're not busy, blah, 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 all that stuff. So that is I think our PR need to be getting more and more ready to answer this kind of question, because that is the impressions of the public, right?
I think we are, I think during the non-incident time, we do more training in EMS, fire, hazmat, rescue, WMD. We have more training requirements than we've ever had.
Okay,
And so that we do a lot of training. Our crews struggle to keep up with all the training they have. They have to eat. They are doing a lot of readiness and preparing their equipment or repairing their equipment and restocking when they get back. So that actually is a great example of why we have to be careful of using UHU in isolation, because that's just
Right.
incident time. They're doing other stuff too.
it's funny, I was in Japan, and they did the demonstration right in front of, on the streets,
Yeah.
the station, right? They go crawling around. I said, this is really weird, that's not training. Then I realized that it's a public, they
Right.
kind of let the public know they're working, they're not in the station sleeping or anything like that.
Yep.
So I don't know, I mean, it's just, but
Yeah.
I really appreciate that, and there's a good presentation. It would be great for me if you can give me a package, and then next time, give it to me before the presentation, I can write notes and stuff like that. That would be really helpful.
Thank you
Yeah.
for that feedback.
Other questions for Chief Maxwell on that portion of the budget report? Chief Maxwell, I did have a question for you, and that is, so what you have just presented, that information, are there any budget impacts to the 2025 budget related to what you've described?
No, not at this time. It looks like we're below threshold, and we would like to bring you. We'd like to have some in-depth discussions in Q1 of next year.
To kind of speak about those issues that, or discuss those issues that you addressed as we look forward to the 2026 budget.
Yes, that would be acceptable to the board.
Okay, that sounds good. Any other questions, comments on this subject? No? Okay, great, thank you. We will then move forward. Let's see, we had left off with 10B benefit charge. That takes us to 10C, Commissioner redistricting, and with no comments in our public hearing about that, my plan is to bring that forward for board action for Plan 2, probably for the third meeting of November, unless it looks like that third meeting, which is budget adoption, if it looks like it's going to be hot and heavy and busy that night, then maybe the first meeting of December, but otherwise, third meeting of November, and to adopt Plan 2. And I will check with our consultant, Mr. Schweitzer, but I wanted to see does anybody want Mr. Schweitzer present for that adoption hearing? You can contact him beforehand if you want to, if you have questions, but otherwise I was planning to not. It'll just be on the agenda for action. Okay, all right, that sounds good. That moves us forward in the agenda then to item 10D, which is Fire Marshal ILA, a continued discussion, and with Chief Anderson. Good evening.
Yeah, so this ILA is actually what Linwood is looking at, and I don't know how many, this is the first time I'm actually briefing the board on Linwood's. So what you see in the packet is the agreed upon draft currently. The council has had a preliminary look. They have not voted on it on the city council. We wanted to get in front of you for discussion first. This is very similar to the Mount Lake Terrace ILA. It has some changes in it. The window for payment instead of 30 is 90 because Linwood pays out once per quarter, or they're used to for their billing cycle once per quarter to pay their bills. So we didn't see any problem with allowing for the 90 days to pay out. We had to change one thing in your wording there in 7.1.1. You'll see the fire code official is listed as supervisory duties over authority personnel, which the fire code official would be one of ours designated by the chief. That currently, we're not ready to have that into the ILA document. We didn't feel that was appropriate place for it because that requires us to be able to have discussions with the local on job description for the current deputy fire marshals. So we've changed that to the authority will supervise the authority's personnel. That's the only change we've made since then, and that is as recent as yesterday. So I apologize for not having that up to date in your packet. Other than that, Linwood is ready to move on it. They're very happy with this, of course, and looking forward to the future of fire prevention with us.
So Chief Anderson, this is just for review by the board tonight, right?
For tonight review, if there's no discussions or homework to go back with it, I think that you can expect probably within 2 weeks or so of us to bring back a signed copy from Linwood.
Okay, that sounds good. Are there questions from the board members? Question or comments? Commissioner Fernhoff.
Yes, Chief, I just want to acknowledge, I think this has been a long time in the making, and there's a lot of hard work by yourself and the rest of the team, and just want to say thank you for getting this to where it is.
Thank you, and I think that goes for me to acknowledge our fire prevention group too, and Alex Janess in particular, who works out of Linwood, who participated in the ILA with Linwood and working through that with the building code official with us.
Any other questions or comments on the Fire Marshal's Office Agreement ILA with Linwood? If not, thank you, Chief Anderson.
Thank you.
That takes us forward then in the agenda to the Fire Marshal fee schedule, continued discussion. We began that discussion at our last meeting and it continues tonight. Chief Anderson.
So the only update I have with that is I would like to spend a little time with Mount Lake Terrace and meeting one in person with their building code official. And I'm interested in finding out their perspective on learning a little bit more on how they structure fees in their building department, and make sure that we're addressing any needs they have. I think they might have a few needs that we need to look at. And then so what I'm saying is that we're not ready to finalize this yet. And then I'll have to approach Linwood as well and just let them know where Mount Lake Terrace is with it if we want to have one document adopted by the board. I think it's important that all cities have a little bit more feedback into this and can kind of mill it over a little bit before we bring it back to discussion with you, with the commissioners.
Any questions or comments from the board members? Commissioner Kretcher.
Yeah, I think we could commit to the beginning of November that we could be really dang close and kind of hashing out some of those details. And so I can make a commitment that this week I feel like I just need to communicate to you some of the things I need fire department to ask the city and get information about. And then also, I don't know if it's really relevant for the city, but what your guys' intention is for the fees and if they have to meet a threshold, or how they're going to offset costs that you might have or fund things. Because one statistic that I did get, just as an example of how squirrely things are, in 2021, there were 92 fire permits in Montlake Terrace. In 2022, there were 89. And in 2023, there were 28. And that's pretty much, I think, a reflection of the interest rates and development and all that. And that's like a third drop of permit revenue just based on how much people are applying for things. So anyway, I'm looking forward. I'm ready to get it on track. I've been a little ill, but let's get it done.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And without a doubt, when we've researched this, there's no way to get 100% full cost recovery. And, even 50% is really hard measure to go for. Now, there's a whole section of our annual inspections that we've got to do as well. That also brings in revenue that'll up that fees or up what you're seeing for fees currently in the office. But there's no way to get 100% recovery out of it. And every agency I've visited, it's pretty similar to this as well. You can't keep up with the cost of, CPI, CPU and employee contracts and everything else that are involved with it. Even on the private side, just measuring what they can do for inspections. What was a shocker to me was that our current DFM wage, which I know is pretty competitive, they were as equal. They were almost dead equal with us even on the private side, just because of how hard it is right now to get employees into the trades and everything else. So it was a surprise for me. So I'd love to go through it with you and just kind of feel that through and see what you have and take any advice or help we can on that document before we finalize it.
Any other questions or comments for Chief Anderson on the proposed fee schedule for consideration? Okay, thank you, Chief Anderson. That moves us forward then in the agenda to item number 10F, which is brand name and sole source resolution involving Mako Incorporated and Western Fire Supply. That's with Chief Maxwell.
Thank you, Chair Kenny. This presentation will be our Deputy Chief of Safety, Mike Hudson, who he actually inherited this multi-year project from the prior safety division. And so he has been working hard to take it to the finish line. And I'll turn it over to Chief Hudson.
Thanks, Chief.
Good evening, Chief Hudson.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, City Liaison, and staff. As Chief said, I'm Mike Hudson. Happy to come forward tonight and kind of hopefully finish off this SCBA washer discussion. So in following in my boss's footsteps, I'll kind of go over where we've been and then go over where we are and then hopefully where we're going. So as he indicated, I took over this position about 1.5 years ago. And when I took over the position, the SCBA washers was a front runner of, hey, how can we get these things going? Since then, there's been a lot of discussion on different products that came forward. Initially, it was the Solo washer, and then the Mako washer became available. We had our subject matter experts review both of those washers. They did a complete, about a 6-month head-to-head comparison. The Mako turned out to be a better washer. We'd love to seek your approval and suggest that the board adopt the brand name and sole source for Mako because it performs better as a product. If you look in your packet, I believe it's starting on page 118. You've got everything in there that the subject matter experts have completed. You've got a copy of the comparison, page 181, all the way through to page the quotes of page 185, the sole source letter of page 187, and then all of the comparison that the SMEs did, 188, 189, 190. So yes, we are seeking approval from the board to move forward with that sole source purchase. Any questions?
Questions from the board for Chief Hudson on the washers? Commissioner Fernhoff.
Thank you, Chief, for the update and congratulations on assuming the duties of taking on this task. I know that there's been several iterations and starts and stops. My only question is with sole sourcing, oftentimes we have to justify because it's only one vendor has this or this product, so forth. And I'm sure your packet details this, but for those that have not gotten through the entire detail of the packet, can you tell us the why that this is such a good thing? Does it make it sparkle or what happens?
Yeah, when comparison head to head, the Mako hands down does a better job cleaning and removes more contaminants than the Solo washer. It's also cheaper in the long run because it's about 7 cents per load versus $1.50 per load. It also cleans more in the same amount of time or cleans more faster than the solo washer does.
You almost sounded like a commercial there, and it, relieves dishpan hands and some other stuff. That's a great point, and I thank you for that.
Other questions for Chief Hudson? Chief, I did have a question for you. I vaguely recall it's either 4 or maybe it was 5 washers. Where do you anticipate putting them in the RFA?
Yeah, so it's 5, and we're going to go with stations 10, 11, 15, 18, and 21. The one that we trialed is currently at station 18, so that one stays, and then that ends up with 5. The plan, my ultimate goal is to put one in every station.
That sounds good. Thank you. Any other questions for Chief Hudson? And we were anticipating action on the sole source resolution tonight.
Yes, please.
I'll move the adoption of the sole source and brand name resolution. That's resolution number 10152024-15. That's at page 191 of your packet. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Fernhoff. It's been moved and seconded to adopt that resolution. Is there discussion on the motion? Discussion on the motion.
I just have
Commissioner Chan.
I just have a question. Is it really necessary to each one has one? Or just because travel times and all that stuff?
Yes, it would keep units in service longer. They wouldn't have to go to another station to then do the cleaning. That's a long-term goal. That's not part of this. Right now, it's just trying to meet that quota of the dollar amount, which would be 5.
But we anticipate we've furthermore in the other one coming.
Yes, as part of a healthy in, healthy out initiative that the Washington State Council has put forward, putting one in every station would be ideal.
But eventually, that might be another brand new brand come up with even a winner, right? So we're not necessary.
Potentially.
All right.
Any other questions on the motion? Any other questions on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you, commissioners.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chief Hudson.
Commissioner Kenny,
Yes.
I think we need approval for the sole source and the purchase.
Well, that's what I wasn't sure because the cover sheets indicated just the resolution did the job, but I did wonder about that because it doesn't authorize the purchase, I don't believe.
I'm
It
gonna
authorizes
ask,
sole source.
I'm gonna ask we authorize the purchase because it's about 240,000 and I can't sign for that.
It's been moved and I'll second to authorize that purchase of the Mako washers. It's been moved and seconded. And is there discussion on the motion? Any discussion
Yeah,
on the motion? Commissioner Chan?
I'm glad you can justify that. I'm the one always against sole source. Remember that? I think that will prove it to our taxpayer. We're really not biased and really do our best.
Staff did their due diligence on this one. They've been
Exactly.
working on it a long time. And Commissioner Kenny, this was budgeted.
Yes, I know
And
that.
it was budgeted 240,000 and the expense for the 5 is $250,658.83, just for the record.
Any other discussion on the motion to authorize the purchase? Any other discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. And I think then.
Thank
that's the
you
end of-
very much. And
you.
and thank you,
Thank you,
Chief
Chief
Hudson.
Hudson.
He did a very thorough job. So thank you.
Next up is item 10G, the locution station purchases. This is for discussion with Chief Curtis.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, Liaison, and staff. I'm before you this evening to ask for your approval and consideration of Phase 2 of the locution fire station alerting system. This equipment purchase is a request for your approval for the purchase in the amount of $251,563. This is in line with the budgeted amount and to carry it over reauthorization into this year's budget from a previous year. And there's a remaining balance of $1,175,000. So far, to bring you up to speed, we have purchased and installed equipment at fire stations 15, wrapping up stations 10 and 11 as we speak. And this is for authorization to purchase the equipment for fire stations 12, 18, 19, and 21, which is considered phase 2 of a four-phase project. Phase 4 would be the Edmonds stations if and when they reverse annex into the RFA. So with that, I ask for your approval for a authorization for staff to sign a contract with Prime Alert Fire Station Alerting hardware and software for fire stations 12, 18, 19, and 21.
Is there discussion or questions generally on the issue of the locution and the hardware purchase? Any, Commissioner Fernhoff?
How is the system performing to date?
We have it operational with very little interaction from our IT department at Fire Station 15, which, as you know, is our highest call volume station. So it's tested multiple times a day with very little negative feedback. Everything's been very positive, and the only interactions that IT has been some adjustments that are driven from our end. It's been very dependable.
And the crew feedback is exactly what we were hoping for, limiting
Exceptional.
full house toning, and we're just getting what we need.
Yes, and for those that are unaware, we had a general alerting system that was not catered to where the firefighters are sleeping or where they're housed during the day or their activities. This system allows us to set up a zoned alerting system based on where those units are in the station. So in other words, half the station doesn't have to wake up because the aid unit goes out on a call, or the battalion chief doesn't get alerted or does get alerted. We had an old archaic system that was known as a Nighthawk system that has been very problematic over the years, which led us to this decision. And that system has been completely removed and put into a retirement state. And this system has performed beyond our expectations. So we're very grateful that this board and previous board has approved these purchases to date.
Good news. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Any other questions generally on, or comments generally on the locution and its hardware system? If not, I think we're ready for a vote on it if the board is willing. I will move that we authorize the chief to sign the contract with Prime Alert Fire Station Alerting for the locution system. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Rowland, sorry. It's been moved and seconded to authorize the chief to sign the contract for that purchase. Is there a discussion on the motion? Is there discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you, board. And just for clarification, I will be returning very soon with a second portion of this to ask for the authorization for the installation portion of that once we determine a contractor. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Chief Curtis. That moves us forward in the agenda then to item 10.
Spending too much money today.
Sorry, that's the end of unfinished business. Moves us on to new business and the contract for the Snow 911 managed laptops with IT manager Chris Groneveld. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to try and keep it as short and sweet as possible in case, or unless there's any questions, but back in 2019, my predecessor had done the research and moved all of the devices that are on all of our active apparatus. So the laptops that basically show all of the dispatch information, the modems that allow them to connect back to dispatch and to all other systems while they're out on the road. All those were brought in and adopted into the managed laptop program that Snow 911 created. I'm not sure when, but it took a lot of the load off of our IT team. We have a pretty small team, so it has proven to been very useful, and especially since those specific devices are specifically used to work with the systems that Snow 911 manages. They know exactly how the systems are supposed to be set up. it's proved to be very helpful to have them be able to help troubleshoot, replace, fix devices as they come up. That was initially signed up for a 5-year contract, which this year is the end of that 5-year contract. So we are looking to renew that contract, replace the devices that with more up-to-date devices and continue that support through them. So we're looking to any discussion or questions that you guys might have about the program, but if there is nothing, our hope is to sign the renewal and continue forward with that program as it is now. Any questions?
Any questions or comments from the board about this Snow 911 renewal? Managed laptops, sorry. Commissioner Teofleck.
What's the difference in the cost for this upcoming contract versus the previous contract?
It's actually fairly comparable. There's not much of a difference between it. We did drop a couple of laptops because there were a couple that were added off cycle due to different needs. So it was dropped slightly, but yeah, it's pretty comparable. I don't know the exact dollar value because it can change slightly when they actually do renew them, but it's all within the budget and it is covered in this year's budget as well as the current proposed budget for 2025 as well.
Any other questions? Commissioner Fernand?
I'm sorry, you may have mentioned this and my brain was someplace else, but are they purchasing the laptops and then giving them to us? So we don't really see that dollar figure. And they're doing I'm imagining a mass purchase to get the best unit price and some other things that contribute to that.
Exactly. Yeah, they're purchasing it, they're setting it up. We install it in the actual units, but they take care of all that stuff.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions, comments about these Snow 911 managed laptops? Commissioner Rowland.
How often do they do hardware refreshes?
They're basically lined up with the actual the contract. So they purchase everything with a 5-year warranty on everything. So it's a 5-year hardware refresh cycle.
So they're purchasing a laptop for 5 years, and we're paying approximately, what, about $1,500 per laptop per year? If you take 127 times 12,
my math is terrible, but yeah.
Roundabout.
Sure.
So for 5 years, we're paying about $7,500 per laptop for this service. If my math is correct.
Sorry. It's all outlined in here.
Commissioner Rowland, it also includes the connectivity piece, so it includes the data card.
yeah.
And I'm not sure what device they're using for connectivity. So it's that device plus the connectivity, and then they do all the support and all those other pieces are required. So it's the hardware components, the computer. It also includes, and like I said, I don't know what they're using.
Yeah.
And the data card. So that's all part of it. We don't pay for the data. That's all the annual $50 per unit is part of this deal too.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is covering the modem replacement as well, which those are also 5 years old at this point.
Okay.
So it's replacing that and then whatever other software they install, they do the security software, all that kind of stuff. It's
So
all in
the
there.
data plans are covered by them. We don't pay for any cell coverage or anything like that.
Correct.
Okay. Just still kind of curious at the breakdown. I know that these are rugged units and they tend to be around $3,000, $3,500 in my experience compared to like a normal laptop. So there does seem to be, I guess even if I were to go through and kind of try to work out, it does seem like it would be cheaper for us to do this on our own. Maybe we're getting to a size where that might be more feasible, but I do think it would require the staff to be able to support it as well. So I think long-term, maybe we need to just look at what the comparison would be between the two. I'm not intending to say that we shouldn't go forward with this renewal, but it does seem like long-term, the fiscally responsible kind of thing to do would be at least to see where that break-even point would be and at what point do we switch over.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments generally on the issue? I think we're ready for a motion. I'll move that we Authorize the chief to sign the enhanced service level agreement with Snow 911 for the laptops. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Chan. It's been moved and seconded to authorize the chief to sign that contract. Is there discussion on the motion? Discussion on the motion. If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. That moves us forward in the agenda then to committee updates. And that starts us with the Capital Facilities Committee and Commissioner Lawrence.
Nothing new.
Excellent. Up next is Finance and Human Resources, Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, we had the meeting yesterday. We have two, on HR, on the honorarium policy. I think Dave's going to present that. It's also called Maxwell policy. The second one is the benefit charge adjustment, and that's what we're here something today. Presented by our CFO. The formula and everything else. So you didn't explain really well. I still have questions today. So, thank you.
Next up then for committee reports is intergovernmental, Commissioner Wittes.
Thank you, Chair. Just to bring you up to date on where we are with Edmonds, we went ahead and had several meetings with them. And their team basically consisted of Mayor Rosen, the Council President Olson, Councilmember Tibbet, who's also the chair of the Public Safety Committee, and the City Attorney, Jeff Teraday. And along with that, it was our staff, and we had Richard Davis part of that also. There are quite a few conversations that we've had with them. A lot of it had to do with station ownership, contract payments, and that's be foregoing some payments because we may want to, and that was not the case, but I explained that to them. They wanted to increase the benefit charge if there's a way they could kind of put that in play that empowers us to, or they empower them to make legislative decisions. They had questions about representation of having more than one. They had a real question about parity on AV because it was significantly more AV in Edmonds than it is elsewhere, and kind of went through that about they're in the middle. And there's other agencies that have more AV than they did. Also, they had a two-station model issue that has been brought up in the last several years. We kind of squelched that, saying it's not just two stations. We're looking at really 3.5 to 4 there. They brought up waterfront coverage and wondered if we could do something down there. They also brought up staffing increases, and part of the staffing increase that we talked about was that 4.5 number maybe being higher of what we needed. And also there's some question about the census data, that which one would be used, and that's an RCW. So with those issues, we kind of put that together. That's what's in the RFA plan. We've stood true to the RFA plan that we have today. So basically, none of that stuff was there. We're sticking with the plan that we had with Mount Lake Terrace, with Briar, and with Mill Creek. The discussion came up then of what can we do, negotiate, what can be worked with. And what was brought up is we can look at doing something with possibly the payments for 2025, if that was maybe taking them for over a year, 2-year period possibly. We could look at the Snow 911 fees after the annexation is successful. It would be an April 22nd vote, so it wouldn't be able to even be certified or us to move forward to fulfill the annexation or put it in the fire authority till June 1st. So it'd be basically 7 months of paying for possibly the 911, left liability, and fire marshal services. And that's kind of where we left it there. We're having another meeting, our committee meeting on Monday. We'll have the RFA plan together, which will include Edmonds. And that's basically, that'll be a draft that you'll see. We'll send that out. And then the pre-annexation stuff that will have that other component to it of possible things we can bring over to the RFA. And so that's kind of where that was. A side note that we did bring up to that was Department of Emergency Management. They pulled out of it, and I'm not sure what year they pulled out. They do not participate in DM, and that affects us as a fire agency significantly. basically, if we go on a scene right now, we have an issue, we can call dispatch and get DEM activated and involved. If you're not part of it, then, and Everett's not part, Marysville and Edmonds.
Yeah, so Edmonds has notified DEM that they're not going to participate in DEM next year. So they're currently a member of DEM. They aren't going to be a member of DEM starting in January of 25. And the challenge with that is for us is that we'd have to go through the city first if we had an event in the city of Edmonds that required resources that we didn't have, that we historically go through DEM. We'd have to go through the city first, and with everything that's happening in the city and where the city's going with their current budget proposal, it'll be probably somebody in law enforcement, and it'll be a collateral duty. And the challenge for us is usually if we have an issue, we call the duty officer, and we real time get what we need. The challenge with Edmonds not being part of DEM, and it adds a complexity to it that it's a one-off, and so there's some value in potentially, as Commissioner Wittes is talking to, from my staff, having them be part of DEM is huge value for us, at least in the short term. So does that answer what the other piece you needed from me
Yes,
on that?
and so what we're looking at is possibly doing something of paying that, the whole portion of it, which is basic police and fire, but paying that for the next 3 years until they can take it over again. Or one of the things we're looking at, it is different in the unincorporated area than it is in cities. The cities pay to DEM, where basically the county takes care of DEM in the unincorporated areas. So unless we do that or get interlocal, which might be a good thing to have for a RFA, it's never really been done before, but an interlocal agreement with Department of Emergency Management that would cover the fire component. So that's what we're working on. We'll kind of put this together next Monday, and then we'll have the RFA plan, draft of that. We'll have a draft of the pre-annexation agreement. So again, when you see the RFA plan, all that's really changed is it's going to incorporate the city of Edmonds in it with no other changes. It'll look just like the other cities. And then the pre-annexation plan, we'll have that together. We'll send that out. Should be on next Monday to everybody. We'll send it to the chair and he can send it out. So that's where we sit with that. And then we'll meet again with them possibly on the 28th. I believe is the next scheduled time. It seemed to go pretty good at the last meeting, so all is well so far.
Sounds good. Any questions for Commissioner Wittes?
Yep.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Snow 911 with Commissioner Fernhoff.
No updates. We meet, subcommittee meets tomorrow, and then the full 911 group will meet here at headquarters, actually in person on Thursday.
That sounds good. Thank you. That moves us forward on the agenda to item 13, Commissioner comments. Are there any Commissioner comments? Commissioner Lawrence.
Yes, tonight we had, well, some information that we could operate 30% less or so. We could cut our budget maybe by 30%. So I don't know what you guys been doing. Actually, based on my experience, I've never had the public come up to me at all. I think probably extrapolate on that, most of the commissioners really don't get too much of the public complaining about things. And well, why don't they? So the public's not motivated to come here and complain about how you guys are doing. And so my almost 5 years here on the board, I can't help but be extremely impressed. The uniformed staff, all impressive individuals, the ununiformed staff, civilian staff, impressive at all times. And then the board, yeah, great people here on the board. And so how did this organization become the lowest cost provider with the highest level of service in the area
it's internal. It's the board and the staff. And the rank and file, incredibly impressive individuals when I visit the fire stations for the open houses and other times that I've met them. Just incredible individuals, they're really impressive quality. So I just have to give everybody a well done. Over the years, you created this organization and kept it going. That just from internal desire of the quality of the people in the organization over the years. Yeah, so well done.
Thank you. Other commissioner comments? Any other commissioner comments? Not seeing any. Our next meeting is not the first Tuesday of November. It is when we adopted our schedule for the year, we decided not to have that meeting because November 5th, Tuesday, November 5th is election night. So our regularly scheduled meeting for the first meeting of November is Wednesday, November 6th at 7 p.m. here at South County Fire Headquarters. So just noting that. No meeting on election night. It'll be the next night, Wednesday, the 6th. With that, we have no other business to come before the board, and without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you. See, got you out of here at 8:30. That's not too bad.
Yes, excellent, excellent. I don't want to announce it.